Hey, what do you say, boys and girls? This is a good friend of yours. I'm Bobby Blitz from the band Overkill, and you are watching DaBelly.
Hi, this is Dave from DaBelly. I'm here today with Bobby Blitz from Overkill. Welcome to Club Red in Phoenix.
Good to be on DaBelly, Dave. Yeah, good to be in Phoenix. Good to be anywhere, I guess, at my age, right?
Well, hey, come on now. That's easy.
That's an old Lemmy thing. I can't take credit for that. I heard him say stuff like that on tour with me. He'd say, "Good evening, Munich. Good to be here. Good to be anywhere at my age." So always brought a smile on my face.
Another legend that's missed.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Congratulations on Grinding Wheel. Out for a couple of weeks now. Tell me a little bit about the record.
I don't know. I mean, it's it's always hard to be objective about something that you've been in. I think I've been around the block long enough, or many times, to know that to tell you it's the best thing since canned beer is probably a load of happy horse shit. But a year from now, I'll probably get a good perspective on it. But I can tell you that there's excitement around it. And if the band has that excited feeling, that is where the success translates from. So excitement breeds the success that we feel for the record. So we feel that we've accomplished something pretty unique with it, kept the Overkill brand, yet at the same time tried to show some of the diversity we had as everything from kids growing up to what we've morphed into as grumpy old men here. But but I think the point with regard to that diversity is whether it be the new wave of British heavy metal, or classic metal and rock, or that rock and roll, or off the rails stuff, punk rock, doom, groove. It seems to contain all these elements. So I think that's where that excitement or that feeling of success comes from.
Yeah, I'm certainly hearing a little bit of the punk flavor to it. Certainly the classic rock and the British wave of heavy metal. My God, you can hear it on several songs on the record. I'm very impressed you get all those sounds kind of wrapped up into one bundle. How did you approach writing the record itself?
Well, I agree with you, and I think the key at the end of the day is trying to put your own brand on it. Make it identifiable as opposed to somebody else's thing. As a copy. But how we did it is, we've had a process for years. I mean, it's Dee Dee Verney is the principal songwriter with regard to the riff. Then it filters through everybody in the band, and I'm usually the one who's exposed to those riffs secondary. Occasionally, I'll throw him something that's a vocal line that he'll write around, but that's the unusual circumstance. So they started developing, and we started noticing these differences, and Dave was getting his hands on songs like Goddamn Trouble or Mean Green Killing Machine, and we started pushing ourselves, I think, a little bit further and further away from center. And what I mean by center is that there's an Overkill that is energy based, that is kind of our core or our center. But then when you start getting these other interesting nuances that you realize as part of your fabric, your own DNA, you say, hey, how fucking cool is this? We can really go somewhere else with something, and how are we going to make it our own? So that development started with Dee Dee, ended with me, but really went through a process of everyone else in the band, and I think that everybody contributed at a pretty high or excellent level.
You've been very faithful. You mentioned the sound, the Overkill sound. Yeah, 18th album, and you've always had this sound on your records. You can always listen to it and say, that's Overkill. I know it's Overkill. It's not just the voice, it's the music too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a meat and potatoes way of writing the riff, and I think Dee Dee has a lot to do with that. I mean, in the early days, it was a four-pronged songwriting attack. Everybody in the band wrote, and then it was three of us when Bobby Gustafson was in the band. And then it became me and Dee Dee. It was really his idea about the riff. He's bendable. It's not like, this is a democracy. That sucks occasionally comes up. It's not whatever you do is golden. But I think that when he becomes focused with something and concentrates on the 10 or 12 riffs that he's trying to develop, obviously with the help of myself and a great drummer and a great guitar player, I think that it becomes identifiable because it gets plugged into our process. Or our template with regard to writing.
It's I've noticed also with the last 3 or 4 records, you've had a real resurgence. Overkill's, not that you've disappeared, but there seems to be a rush back to thrash music again. I think that's exciting. I think your guys are kind of leading the way in that. How do you attribute that? What do you think? What do you think's turned?
Well, I think, first of all, the scene's healthier. I mean, that's just as simple as it is. I mean, there's an influx of youth here who've given this legs. I mean, you don't incorporate guys. If me and you are not Exodus fans by now, we're not going to be Exodus fans. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But somebody who's 18 to 25 can be. And I think that spreads over to, the Overkill camp too, or benefit. And I think that, all we're doing is feeding off the energy that the youth is giving the scene. And you see it. You go to shows. I mean, the front row or the non-drinkers are all over here, and they're wearing the old denim patch uniforms and white high tops and the Kirk Hammett stretch jeans. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, right?
Yes.
But I mean, they're wearing that uniform, and that shows that this generation, or that generation we're speaking of, detects value in something that we were involved in as kids, and that's kind of cool to see that it's transcended that. And I think the reason it's transcended it just was devoid of popular culture. This had nothing to do with popular culture. This was to the side, to the left, and to some degree shunned as a non-art form. But those who have discovered or rediscovered it treat it like a religion. So there's where your resurgence comes from, and I think the fact that they have energy feeds our energy. Therefore, you get that if we're going to brand the grinding wheel to make it an Overkill record, energy again is at the core. But that's where it's coming from. I think the audiences.
I'm sure you can vouch for this better than I can. We go to the shows. We covered a lot of the events like you guys, and we go in there and see some of the local opening acts. And I'm surprised at some of the almost classic 70s and 80s riffs they're pulling out. I mean, these guys weren't alive back when that was happening, and here they are up on stage, and they're kind of, they're punching it out again.
Yeah. It's amazing, a kid who's, 18 with his first Les Paul is discovering, something off of Stained Class by Judas Priest, I mean, I was 18 when that came out, you know what I'm saying? So I think the point is that, again, it shows value, and when things are the counterculture, I mean, we live in a world right now where to be diverse is actually the norm. Diversity has actually become popular culture. So, when popular culture, as soon as you get the stamp on it, you become disposable because you're looking for the next piece of popular culture to put in there. And I always think that the saving grace of this music has been that it's been devoid, that it has been the counterculture. We're not the degenerates we were when we were kids, where we've turned this into something that means a lot, not only to us as a band, but to this community. And that's where we get our fulfillment as people, being in part of that counterculture. So that's the end of the fucking philosophy. We're gonna. There's a lot of beers and chicks on the road.
Come on now, that died about 20 years ago. All right, so you got a couple videos out on this record. Nothing But Trouble, Mean Green Fighting Machine, right? Killing Machine.
Hey, you're trying to go off the top of your head.
Off the head, people. It's not as sharp as it used to be.
And he's trying like hell, so I mean, he's going to get points for that.
So tell me about the videos.
We didn't do video for Mean Green. We did. That was a lyric video, and that was just to get the song out. We were like, we don't really need to just have the bat flying around, whatever. We just want to have the. Hey, let's all take a really crazy picture of you in the crowd. We're not doing that. we're Overkill. We're different than the other ones. The ideas behind the videos are that they're great promotional tools, and I think if I, to be honest, think of them as a reflection of band value versus that of your relationship with your record company or your partner. So we like to use high-end producer Kevin Custer. Director. We've worked with Toaster in the Tub Productions for the last 4 video shoots. And we kind of give it to him and say, listen, we know how to write Overkill songs. And we want approval on this video, but we're going to kind of give you a free hand because, sure, we understand what visually is attractive to us, but I think that at the end of the day, if you give somebody who is a quote-unquote artiste that hand, they work harder, and you get better results than It's like the guy who's you're working on a 396 big block, and you got some guy over here giving you advice who this whole toolbox is a Leatherman. Just shut up. Just shut up. I know where the valve covers are.
Well, you're giving him an investment into the music itself. You're letting, well, not the music, but the aesthetics of it. You're giving him an opportunity to sort of create a little bit of art that's in his mind, not just being fed, concepts and making it work. So yeah, it's nice that you give him that opportunity. Yeah.
Well, a person has more stake in something. It means more to them. It's a great business practice. I mean, we grew up in Jersey. I mean, we understand all this stuff. Incorporate them in. Incorporate them. Don't let them out. But incorporate them in, and they will, and they will work that much harder as opposed to ostracizing them, with my own intelligence. I don't have intelligence when it comes to really seeing the eye for video, but I do know Kevin does, or has that artistic eye. So I think that it works for us with that principle.
I read a quote of yours online talking about living in the here and now rather than as a legacy, the importance of sort of living today. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it becomes the motivation. I think that when you get down to the basis of what I am personally and a lot of what this band is the motivating factor, and our biggest sin is pride. This is really what why guys do this into their 50s. It's I'm a prideful person, and I don't want people to talk about what it was. I like them to talk about what it is. Because that feeds my pride, and that pride becomes motivational to keep doing it. And I think as long as we get good results, and I think that we have great results on the grinding wheel, that excitement I talked about earlier, that pride actually becomes a positive element into why this band actually clicks this many years later. It was never about who's in the band; it was about the band. There's a great, when you're a kid, you give your left nut to be, in a band, and a couple of fingers. But to carry that on for this amount of years and then turn that excitement into something that's prideful or something that, you feel somewhere inside yourself that you have dignity and honor, that you've actually lived your life like a person as opposed to just some kind of band. You know what I mean? So it becomes important, I think. And I think that to me becomes probably the greatest motivating factor.
And it's also nice to know 18 albums deep into this, you're not over with yet. You're still going.
Yeah, I'm never the guy who likes to look into the future. I mean, right from the beginning, I never understood the long term. I could never look down the road. I mean, I got a great partner in Dee Dee who understands that I'm a little bit more short-sighted. You put both of us together, you probably get a pretty good balance of, explosive planning. But are we over yet? I don't think so. But I think the double narrative in the title, The Grinding Wheel, is to say, hey, this grinding wheel grinds on and on and on. But beware, all things that were created will eventually, decompose, break down, go away. So enjoy it while it's here. So maybe a little more of my philosophy from that question about living in the here and now. So I'm not gonna look into the future. It'll only jinx it for me.
Oh, that's good. Well, you might not know this, but you're on tour. Imagine that. We're about 10 shows deep into the tour today, and
still healthy.
Oh, he's still got a pulse. So hydrating is good. So tell me a little bit about how the tour's been going, and also talk a little bit about where you're going for the rest of the year.
Well, touring is probably, when it came to that, instantaneous gratification part of me. Live shows are what it's all about because there's always a risk, And now, obviously, we've been touring for 35 years, so the risk has been minimalized. We pretty much know what we're doing by this point. But you never know what's going to happen with regard to whether the red light is on or not, for instance.
There it is.
And I love that. That's the high I've always chased. So I never have a problem going on the road. I mean, I don't like touring for 2 months because it'll ruin me. But I mean, you put me out there for 25, 26 days. Same with the rest of the guys. We won't hit a brick wall in that 25, 26 days. So now we're on the road with Nile, just kicking it off. We're about 10, 12 shows deep. And they've been great. I mean, they've been full houses, some sellouts across the board, which is not across the board, but in the A markets, San Francisco, et cetera. Big numbers in Chicago. Minneapolis did great numbers. It was to the doors and nice sized venues. So we're going to just continue doing this. You know, it's kind of like, why fix it if it's not broken, you know? But having Nile on here is great because it's not really like always preaching to the converted. It's like having a little bit different... it's the same DNA, but there's different characteristics to how you present it. I mean, if you stripped it down, we really come from the same egg. But I think the point is that I like playing to some of the death metal guys, and I think they like playing to some of the thrash metal guys and girls. So far so good. But the rest of the year is stacked. I mean, we're looking at the South American run in May. We're going to hit Russia. The European festivals are going to keep us over there for half of July, most of August. There's a second U.S. run in September. There's a second European run in November. Australia chimed in. Pacific Rim. Chinese have come in.
You need a longer year.
You know, I mean, but it's how you do it. You know, I mean, if it's 15 to 22 shows, you're golden. You know, with that, you know, that 3-week break, 4-week break in between. If it's continuous grind, for lack of a better term, it can wear the hell out of you. But right now we're on top of our game. We're just, you know, we just changed the oil on the old Chevy, and we're ready to take it out on the road.
Well, that's all I got tonight. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Oh man, this was fun. This is a good one.
All right. Yeah. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thinking my lips is what's on walls.